You know, there's an expression that it's better to be thought of a fool than open your mouth and remove all doubt. That's so true, especially as it relates to Donald Trump's lawyer at his criminal trial, Todd Blanche. You know, when Todd Blanche was just standing there and kind of looking like a mannequin as Donald Trump would give his pre and post trial ridiculous ranting and raving statements. I heard that Todd Blanche may have had a good reputation. I heard he was doing very poorly in the courtroom, that his opening and closing and cross exams were very ineffective. But now seeing Todd Blanche do his right-wing media tour or his kind of further hazing ritual for Donald Trump, this is some bizarre stuff. And here you have Todd Blanche going on Fox on Friday evening, and he went there as well after the jury reached a verdict on Thursday. But he went on Fox on Friday, and you could tell how nervous he is about Donald Trump actually going to prison, and that it seems like he thinks Donald Trump's going to go to prison. Here, watch this clip of Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche. Let's play it.
Do you have any thoughts about where this is headed?
I hope, and I'm going to spend the next every day until July 11th working to make sure that there is no jail sentence. I don't know what Judge Merchan will do. I think he knows that he's been a judge for a long time. He knows the law, and I hope that he sentences appropriately. But no matter the sentence, we hope that it's stayed for sure pending appeal, because it's not even all Judge Merchan. Right? It's a district attorney that brought this case, and there's a lot of things that need to be appealed.
You know, one of the other things that Todd Blanche is saying is we're trying to figure out if we can go right to the Supreme Court. If we can go right to the United States Supreme Court and try to call in some favors from those extremist right-wing justices, that's what we're trying to figure out for. Sure, that just simply that process doesn't exist in the law, but, you know, heck, at this point, you've got Justice Alito hanging upside-down flags and other insurrectionist symbols at one at a D.C. residence, the other at his beach house, and you got another Supreme Court justice whose wife was at the insurrection. So we'll just see if we can call in a favor from the Supreme Court. Here, play this clip.
Well, last question. Will you go to the appellate court, the Supreme Court, both?
Both. Look, we're not going to stop fighting. I mean, everybody's talking on your show and on other shows about going right to the Supreme Court. We're going to do whatever we can. If that means we're going to the First Department and the New York Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court, that's what we're going to do. If we can go right to the Supreme Court, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do whatever we can. There's no option that we're slamming the door on.
Yeah, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. Doesn't matter if there's real process or procedure or, you know, anything that they teach you in law school or whether there's precedent. Let's just go to the Supreme Court. Here you have Todd Blanche also saying, look, we're going to appeal this thing. I wanted to win at trial. We didn't, but I think we're going to win on appeal. No, you're not. Here, play this clip.
And exactly what he was going to do today and tomorrow. And we're going to fight. Look, this case is ripe for appeal. I did not want to have to appeal this case. I wanted to win it at trial, and we didn't. But this case, we're going to appeal it, and I fully expect that we'll be fully exonerated on appeal.
You know, when they're following the rantings and raving, it's a feedback loop, right? Like you have the kind of right-wing pundits who work for Fox yell and scream, and then Donald Trump tells his lawyers, that's what I want you to do. So like the advice about going directly to the Supreme Court, right? Where did that originate from? Mark Levin. So Mark Levin, who has a show on Fox, he was the one saying that at first. And then that became the strategy of Donald Trump. Because you remember that Donald Trump has that lady who his political action committees pay over $100,000. They call her the human printer. And she follows Donald Trump around with a portable printer and prints articles that the campaign and Trump's lawyers think he'll like. So he's like, Mark Levin says this and so says this. But here's what Mark Levin had to say. This is some of the advice that Donald Trump is having his lawyers follow. Now, play this clip.
Kooks do it. We need to look at Bush versus Gore. Why did the Supreme Court take that case from the Florida Supreme Court? We need to look at things like common law writs, which I know the audience don't understand, but a lot of lawyers do. Not writs of certiorari based on statute, but common law writs based on judicial decisions. We need to give the Supreme Court the opportunity to fix this. Why? We cannot have local acting judges, Soros DAs, 15,000 district attorney's office, God knows how many state judges, destroying our federal election system, influencing how we elect the president of the United States. And if we have a pathway to bring it to the Supreme Court, even though it's rarely used, and by God, we use it. We use every legal quiver that we possibly can muster, rather than sitting around and saying.
And remember, Donald Trump says, I don't even know really this Alan Dershowitz guy. And Dershowitz previously served as Donald Trump's lawyer, but Dershowitz was also on Hannity as well, giving his own advice about what Trump's lawyers should do, basically saying, look, you should expedite the sentencing from July 11th immediately. Let's do it next week so you can then expedite the appeal. So just making up stuff right now. But here's what Dershowitz had to say. Play this clip.
Yeah, let's get your take, Professor. And what would the next steps be for you if you were talking to President Trump's attorneys?
I would do something quite radical. I would move immediately for the sentencing to occur next week, not July 11th, so that you can get the appeal going. You can't appeal until there's a sentence. If the court refused to expedite the sentencing, I would try to take the case now immediately to the New York Court of Appeals, skipping the Intermediate Court of Appeals, which is a political court, Manhattan-based, Democrats largely. I would try to go right to the Court of Appeals and ask them for a decision within 30 days in order to get to the Supreme Court before the election. There's no reason to have the sentencing delayed until July 11th. The judge knows what he's going to do today.
Professor.
And go figure that, Dershowitz is the one giving the advice here, prominently featured on Fox. He's one of the people who Donald Trump really follows. And you know what they say, how birds of a feather flock together, or birds of Epstein's friends flock together also. Because remember what Dershowitz had to say when about his palling around with Jeffrey Epstein. Just to remind you who Dershowitz is. Here, play this clip.
Dershowitz is a longtime friend of Epstein's who represented him in the criminal underage sex case.
Could you please? I never saw a young underage woman.
Yet Epstein's former butler swore under oath that Dershowitz was at Epstein's residences at the same time underage girls were there.
Were there young women in another part of the house giving massages when I wasn't around? I have no idea of that.
Dershowitz did say he once received a massage at Epstein's mansion, but from an adult woman.
I kept my underwear on during the massage. I don't like massages particularly.
So just so you have the background there on Dershowitz, but more here on Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche. Remember when Todd Blanche was then asked on Thursday why Trump didn't take the stand? Here's what Blanche said.
Why did Donald Trump not ultimately take the stand here?
Well, that's a very personal question to him and to me, honestly. And it's a very difficult question. Of course, he wanted to testify. And I don't say that because that's what he has said. He wanted to get his story out. I think the judge had made some decisions before the trial or the day of the trial started about what would be allowed to be asked of him by the prosecutors if he took the stand. And some of those questions were really complicated to answer because there's still appeals going on. And so there's a lot of decision points that go into whether somebody testifies. Ultimately, it's his decision, and he listened to us and he relied on our counsel, and he reached a decision that he thought was right, which I very much agreed with.
So that means your counsel was for him to not take the stand.
I'm not going to tell you what my counsel was.
Well, you said he relied on counsel and he went with that decision and he didn't take the stand.
But ultimately, it was his decision, and I never say, and I think colleagues and folks that you have on here hopefully agree with me. I never say to somebody, "Don't take the stand." Right? That's their decision, and that's a decision that they have to make. But I want them to have they want them to know what will happen on the good and the bad if they do take the stand.
So no regrets on him not taking the stand?
Look, the verdict came down a couple hours ago. I don't know if I have any regrets about anything yet. I'm still thinking things through, and I think so is he, and so are everybody else around him. But at this point, I don't think that there was a conviction because he did not take the stand.
Huh. It's an interesting one, Todd Blanche. Remember, Todd Blanche was asked, and this was from CNN, so they were actually asking him real questions here, at least. So Donald Trump was saying that there were witnesses that couldn't be called. Like, why didn't you call certain witnesses, if Donald Trump's complaining they weren't called, then you'll see Todd Blanche's responses. The reason I didn't call him is because we live in America, whatever that means. Here, play this clip.
When he was leaving, one thing he brought up were the witnesses who were not called. And he was saying that there could have been witnesses that would have helped make the case. We never saw Keith Schiller, Alan Weisselberg, some key figures here who got brought up a lot. Why didn't the defense call any of these witnesses?
Well, because we happen to live in America and we don't have the burden of proof. And so there's not... That's not the point. That's a question that is a loaded question that should not be asked of a defense attorney or a defendant. The question that we asked the jury, and they ultimately obviously got passed, is why the prosecution didn't call those witnesses, right? You, as a defense attorney, you don't go into a case saying, I'm going to fill the holes of the prosecution, right? And Keith Schiller and some of the other witnesses that were not ultimately called, in our view, should have been called by the prosecution, and we asked the jury to take a hard look at that. I don't know whether they did or not, but they convicted.
And by the way, is he playing dumb? Is this really who he is? It's really strange stuff. And then he goes on right-wing media. Jesse Waters says, how involved was Donald Trump in his own defense? But I think this is probably accurate. Here, play this clip.
How involved was Donald Trump in his own defense?
I mean, what do you think? I mean, very involved. And he's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. He jokingly said to us a lot, sometimes he wanted to be the litigator. You know, he wanted to be the one that was actually arguing because he's a smart guy and he knows what he's doing. We made every decision together. We did. And there were things that he was frustrated with. You know, the judge several months ago, there was we wanted to be able to argue reliance of counsel, that to some extent President Trump was relying on his lawyer, and the judge didn't allow us to do that, and things like that, where he would really push us and say, well, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? It was an honor for me to spend the last 6 weeks with him, defending him.
You know, and I gotta hand it to the Trump lawyer of 2024 who was most responsible. That award goes to Joe Tacopina, because remember, Joe Tacopina was part of this legal defense team for this Trump criminal trial. After the E. Jean Carroll first trial, he was out. He didn't represent Trump in the second E. Jean Carroll, and then he withdrew from representing Donald Trump in this case. But remember when Donald Trump, just like when this whole case started and Donald Trump posted the photo of himself with the baseball bat next to Alvin Bragg's head. By the way, I bet you that comes up in the sentencing memo that's going to be filed by the prosecution. Don't forget about stuff like that and Trump's conduct at the outset of this trial as well, before the trial even started, when the case was just brought, when the grand jury indicted. Remember how Tacopina had to so debase himself and say like idiotic things like this? Play this clip.
It also includes the former president swinging a baseball bat at the head of the Manhattan DA.
Well, I don't know where you got that, because if
that was a tweet sent out by the former president.
No, it wasn't. And first of all, that picture was not him swinging a baseball bat. I mean, if you want to distort the facts, go right ahead. I want to address that. Yes, it is. He wasn't swinging a baseball bat at anyone's head. That was a picture of him showing off an American-made bat. Someone else put a picture of the district attorney next to him, and in an article posted that. That's not his article. That's not his photos.
But then Tacopina realized that he couldn't be a part of Donald Trump's team, and he said it was just my time to leave before the criminal trial started. Remember we went on the Al Sharpton show on MSNBC? Here it is. Play the clip.
Why would you leave the team?
By the way, it's the first and only interview, Reverend, that I'll be doing on this topic. Okay, you're someone obviously very special to me and someone I have a relationship with, and you know I'm going to discuss it once and only once to the degree I can. I left the team because it was just my time. I had to follow my compass, and my compass told me it was my time there was done. There are a lot of personal reasons that went into that, things that I can and won't discuss. I also have ASAP Rocky's trial coming up this year, which is going to take most of my year. The attention that's going to be put into that case, there's a lot riding on that for that young man, his wife, and his family. But there are personal reasons. And you know, as much as I'd love to discuss them, I just can't, because while I see many lawyers, ex-lawyers of the president, go on television once they're removed from the team or leave the team and discuss him and his legal team and have something to say and criticize everyone around, it's not professional. It's petty ante. It shows a lack of confidence in oneself when you go out there and do that. There's also a fiduciary obligation. So regardless of how I feel personally, I have to stay close to the vest when it comes to the exact personal reasons. Reverend, you and I are very close. We can always talk about that. But I just don't want to be like the lawyers who do things that, in my opinion, make them look very bad and violate what an attorney's privileges mean to a client, whether you are with the client or no longer with the client, whether you like the client or don't like the client. But I just had to follow my compass, and it was my time.
So, Todd Blanche, that's what you have to look forward to. There you go. But I hope that this hazing ritual or this humiliation ritual, whatever you're going through right now, I hope it's worth that you've tarnished your entire professional reputation, that everybody in the legal community thinks that you're just an utter and complete fool. But, you got Donald Trump. I'm sure he'll take care of you for the rest of your life. You, Alina Habba, others, you can go to St. Bart's and enjoy it. I'm Ben Meiselas from the Midas Touch Network. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 3 million subscribers. Thanks to your support. Thanks for watching.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the Midas Touch newsletter at MidasTouch.com/newsletter.